Jason, how goes it?
Madan, how are you?
Long time, no chat.
What's new and noteworthy in the world of Dr. Kandula?
Uh, I sent you a picture right before we got on this little podcast dealy
Yeah,
of me. Did I look happy, Jason?
you looked chilly. You looked like you
I
were
looked,
chilling.
I looked miserable, and I was miserable, but I was wearing the hat that you gave me, and I was sitting in a lake in northern Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, and this was like it was like the coldest stretch. It was like minus whatever, and this was against my will, but I did it. And I did it with your hat on, and I did it with a pissed off look on my face. So that's what's new. But one thing that's new is I was forced to go to a breathwork slash cold plunge camp. It was actually a pleasant experience, but it was I don't know. You're into hardcore like running and that kind of stuff? Are you into what do you think about breathing? Are you for it or are you against it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Are you
No,
one to
but but
practice?
but
Do you do
but I
like
no,
breath work, meditation? I mean, they're different, but I kind of put them in this
yeah.
similar zone.
I've dabbled at times, but I'm not. I am a an advocate of breathing, but any sort of breath work protocols. No, I'm not a practitioner.
Okay. Even like
What about yourself? Yeah, I mean,
meditation, not your
yeah, I
but you
meditate.
meditate, but
Yeah,
not breath work meditate. No, I am I've dabbled, I've tried a lot of that stuff. I
yeah.
actually when I'm being good, I do there's something called heart math. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Somebody turned me on this a couple years ago. It's basically it's measuring your heart rate variability and measuring your respiratory rate, and so you
Mhm.
basically are just you're trying to kind of get those things in sync. And I'll do that again when I'm good. I'll do that, pretty much every morning when I wake up. Again, if I'm good. So that's something. But I'm not a big cold plunge fan. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe what I noticed, Jason. As far as the attendees at these things, um, there are no non-white people at these things, and there's a reason for that probably. my people, my people were not meant for. We were meant for the heat. We're not meant for whatever what the water was, like 37 degrees water. It's just no,
Yeah.
thousands of
That
years of evolution are going in the opposite direction. So
yeah, that's a crazy ass white people thing.
seems like it. I mean, again, I could be wrong, but I think the more I thought about that, when I thought about that when I was getting my ass out of that lake, and I'm like, everybody else is having these like epiphanies, and like, they're like, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, the world has changed, and I was like, I just feel cold and miserable. So,
Yeah,
but maybe someday.
but I think also you do a lot of challenging things regularly for in my experience at those types of things, those types of events, uh, that's oftentimes like the one time a year or a decade that those people really get out of their comfort zone. So yes, it is a revelatory experience, whereas you probably have some semblance of a revelatory experience on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah, like yeah, that sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
Speaking of challenging things, what is the well, I need you. I didn't give you the setup, so I need you to answer the question the right way, and the right way is going to be writing a book. So pretend that we didn't just rehearse this, but I'm going to say, what is one of the most difficult things that you've ever done in your life, Jason?
Writing a book.
Who would have guessed that? It looks so easy. I know how to. I was taught how to, write letters when I was like, I don't know, how old are you? Like 6 years old, and I could put words and sentences together when I was like, single digits. And I actually took a typing class in junior high, so I had all the skills necessary to write a book.
Easy.
probably when I was before I was in high school. So why, Jason, is it such a hard thing to write a book?
Well, you could answer that as well because you're writing a book.
I
But
am.
yeah, it's in my experience and that of many others, incredibly challenging because you are creating something new and it requires focus and resilience and tenacity, not just today, but for an extended period of time. And the resistance, as Stephen Pressfield calls it, is ever present. And all of life's pulls are constantly nagging at you, and because you're creating something new, there's some fear involved, whether you recognize it as fear or not. And you've got a million reasons, a million opportunities to bail on it. But not only do you have to do it today, but you have to do it tomorrow and next week and the week after that until it's done. And you experience the peaks and the valleys of self doubt, and um, those are always nagging at you. So yeah, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and I decided to do it a second time.
I got you. Well, we'll get to that in a bit, the second time part. But the first time part, as you're describing it, and I'm still a none timer until I actually have book to print. I don't count myself in the the author side of the equation. But do you feel like the trauma and the turmoil of the creative process that is writing a book, is a large part of that because you're going to be um, bearing, you're going to become vulnerable in exposing your thoughts and opinions about whatever the subject of the book is, and there will be uh, critics. Is that accurate or inaccurate? I mean, it doesn't have to be. I'm just sort of the place my head went when you were describing the process was like, you know. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, there's certainly an element of that. I wouldn't say that that's the primary driver, especially after writing the first book. Um, I've come to recognize that so many critics are just that, and there are people that where I value their feedback, um, but not everyone, right? Not all feedback is created equal, but yeah, some people that if I don't give weight, they don't have credibility as writers or thinkers or whatever it might be that's relevant there. Um, I don't I don't value their feedback necessarily, and I relegate them to the sort of the piles of critics. And oftentimes, when I look at those people, I realize that they don't create things. They don't take risks. They don't build things. They don't put themselves out there. They just sit on the sidelines and talk about what's wrong with everybody else. It's, the Monday morning quarterback. It's like, yeah, that guy should have done that when, seven 400-pound people were charging at him while your 400-pound ass is sitting in the lazy boy, talking about this, that, or the other. It's get lost, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, is it? So I feel like we're sort of directionally heading towards the man in the arena quote. So we might as well just say it out
Sure.
loud. But I would say, and we've talked about this before, but I believe it to be true. Then, and I honestly do kind of to your point that you just made. I feel like in many ways, if you haven't written a book, you can still feel free to have an opinion about it, write your opinion about it, but if you never done that thing, your opinion to that author should be relatively meaningless. And even if you've written a book, in this instance, I'm using this as an example, is if you've done that thing that you're now going to comment on, you didn't do that exact thing that this person did. So even if I will, maybe I'll say is on the book writing thing is if you've never written a book and you have a comment about, I'll just use your book, your first book, Jason, is then you know you're probably up in the cheap seats, and maybe I'll hear like you're happy or sad or something, but I'm not going to really pay much attention to you. If you've written a book, maybe you get sort of better seats, and maybe I might turn my attention and look at maybe what sign you're holding up. And maybe then I'd say that then the final tier would be is you've written a book and I have respect for you, and you have an opinion that's negative towards your book. I'm gonna either that's gonna really hurt, and or I'm gonna take that to heart. Does that sound sort of accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ray Dalio talks about believability from regarding feedback. Who is this from? And yeah, so there are sort of those three tiers that you just mentioned, and those nosebleeds. I mean, I just don't even it doesn't even register.
Hmm.
That sort of middle tier. Typically, that feedback is very positive. It's kind of praise, and it's important to not lend that too much credence either. Sure, I mean, you've got to believe your own hype, but you shouldn't believe the hype of others, I don't think. And then that lowest one are those people at the highest level of believability. I would say that that's yes, that I value that, I invite that, I want more of that, and sometimes when it's critical, it's when yeah, it can leave a little bit of a mark at
Yeah.
first, kind of, but once you process it, I think it's only good. Once you know you tell me, Jason, you really should have constructed this differently, whatever. I mean, you're somebody I have respect for. um, I value what you think of me to some degree. You've created, you've done things, you do things. If you were to give me some kind of harsh critical feedback, yeah, that would sting.
Mhm.
I'd probably middle finger you in my brain for a couple weeks, and then it would I'd synthesize it, process it, and start applying it, and it would be helpful, and I'd be a better person as a result. I mean, there are a couple of published authors. One of them has a New York Times best-selling book that's given me some feedback about my writing, and it's not all glowing, and makes me a little sad initially, but ultimately it makes me a better writer.
Which and Ian, I get it, and I feel like how do you say it? Those I mean, there's the saying that it's not the critic that counts, but back to the man in the arena. But I think what you're saying, and I believe it to be true, is that when you're getting feedback from other men and women in the arena, um, it's different. I mean, and yeah, when it's and honestly, I think that those individuals who are in the arena who are also willing to do a solid to their fellow warriors by telling it like it is, um, that's that's respect, I guess, is sort of
Mhm.
bottom line. And it hurts. I mean, like all, I mean, we're fragile human beings, and we just are wired in a way where negative feedback doesn't feel good, even if you're David Goggins and like to chew glass and run on nails. He still has feelings, and it's still
Sure.
as much as you try to put that like warrior face on, like you're just a little baby that your mother either did something right or wrong to. I mean, we're all that
Yeah.
those. We're all those people, but on the flip side, I'd say back to kind of that man in the arena and writing a book and putting on a conference and like stuff that most people will never do in their lives. And it's very much respect. So is there, I guess, before we get in your the book you're working on right now, is there anything, I guess, when you before you released your first book, you had some thoughts about like what the reception was going to be, and whatever, kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. Was there anything uglier than you thought it might be in its reception? It's a weird question, but
There really wasn't. With that said, probably around the time that book came out, maybe right before, maybe right after, I don't remember exactly. But I read Rick Rubin's book,
hmm
and just to kind of paraphrase the concept, one of the things that he mentions in that book is that once you put the art out there, how it's received is none of your business. And he mentions how, he put out a piece of work that he was very proud of, thought it was among his best, and it came out on 9/11. So other things, took precedent, and that album or whatever it was, that project was sort of overlooked critically and from a sales standpoint. And then he's put out other stuff that he wasn't quite as proud of that, you know, the market loved.
hmm
But the overarching idea being, once you put this out there, you've created it for you, right? It's cathartic or personally rewarding or whatever it is. And once it's out there, what you think about it is none of my business. Um, and that's something that after that first book came out, um, even if I read that beforehand, it really resonated very strongly with me, that concept. And now, I mean, we just had this Transform Dental Sleep Symposium over the weekend, and you know, not to be self-aggrandizing here, but I was so many people came up to me and talked about what an impact that book had on them and how funny it was and all that stuff, and it feels good.
yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, I can't believe that hype, um, because that leads to resting on your laurels. It leads to, or can lead to, maybe trying to sort of recreate that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to recreate anything. I want to create anew, and that's rewarding. And what you think about it again is none of my business.
Understood. And so, and you have created, I guess, where are you in the second book writing process? It's where, I guess you tell me, where are we at? Or are you at?
Yeah, the second book is it's completed. It's right now going through line editing. So that's
Okay.
the really boring process of making sure this should be a comma, not a semicolon, or that stuff. It's available for pre-order right now. It'll be out in the
Okay.
spring, and it's a very different book. Has you mentioned David Goggins a moment ago, and this was not pre-planned. But this book, the guy that I co-wrote it with, it's really a lot about his personal story, and
Okay.
I would say it's like David Goggins can't hurt me
Mhm.
had a baby with Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich,
Ooh, okay.
with sort of a punk hardcore underpinning.
Okay.
So it's an incredible story of overcoming hardship, of grit, resilience, and really being self-made. I think one of the things I appreciate about yourself, Madan, is that you see that nobody's coming to save you.
Mhm.
And it's up to you to build the future you want to see, that you want to live. And that is exactly what Anthony Martini, the guy that I've known for 30 plus years, that this book is sort of his story to date. And it was a very different project in that this wasn't just sort of the brain of Jason, you know uh, 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 transcribed onto paper. It was really a collaborative project with Anthony, and it's a great book. It's an incredible story.
Nice. So did you, as far as the writing process, was it kind of were you the primary writer on it and you were kind of talking with him about his story? Is that right or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've known Anthony for, like I said, 30 plus years. I've met him through, one of my past lives in music. And he, he had a publisher had reached out to him with interest in having him write a book about his story because it's really an amazing story. And he started working on it, and we talked about it a bit, and conducted some interviews, and really took his experiences and put them into a fast paced read that will have you both going, I can't believe this is real, and
Yeah,
also feeling incredibly inspired to go and make things happen.
nice. Wait, so
Yeah,
you wouldn't have written this book if you hadn't written your first book. Is that true?
1 trillion% true.
Yeah, I figure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's. I mean, I know it sounds, how do you say this? I think to the uninitiated that simple sentence that I just said or whatever, I don't think for those people who again, I don't mean to be demeaning when I say it, but it comes off as a negative or down. If you've not created anything, you don't understand. You'll never understand the sentence I just said, if that makes
Well,
sense.
success
Yeah.
success compounds.
Yeah.
Once you've done it, you realize I can do this.
Sure.
And I found the same thing, with running, right?
Hmm.
When I first started running, I tried to run a mile, and I couldn't run a mile without stopping. And once I ran a mile, I thought, what if I could run a mile and a half? And then I ran a 5K. And once you run a 5K, you go, gosh, I should run a 10K. And you do
Hmm.
that. And eventually you're running ultra marathons. And it's the same thing with writing a book. And once you start to do those things, and just creating in general, once you start to do those things, you recognize that you can do it. And then it's a drug, right? You want to do more, you want to do it better, you want to do it bigger.
Yeah. Well, and the world, I guess, and the world changes. You all of a sudden now, as an author, you look at the world differently, and if something like this comes up, um, it's a skill set that you can apply to this particular endeavor. And again, and it's different, but I feel like with your conference and your various other business endeavors, it's to my mind similar, meaning that when you do something and you create something out of nothing, whether it's a book or a piece of music or a business or a conference or you name it, there's a common thread that I don't think people who don't create understand that thread that gets weaved through there. And it doesn't mean just because you can do one of those things that you could do any number of the other things, but kinda like in a way, I think once
Yeah.
and again, back to running and back to, that, sort of being able to take those first steps, and then it changes the way you frame yourself as it relates to the world. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden you're a creator. And I don't know that I feel like there's a negative pejorative around that term, a creator. It
Hmm.
sounds like influencer to me, and artist is another. There's who gets to decide who's an artist. I think somebody else has to
Yeah.
call you an artist. You can't call yourself an artist. So same thing with being a creator, but I'd say you're a creator. Even prior to writing a book, you're a creator, and now that you're sort of doing that, that's sort of a play that you can run. Then you see other opportunities to run that same sort of play, kind of a thing. So yeah.
Yeah, for
um
sure. And I mean, again, you're writing a book. I mean, you're going through this while you've been successful in, numerous other endeavors. Even though, you're a creator, you're an entrepreneur, you've done these hard things. So you're right. There's this sort of through line, but nonetheless, each time you go into sort of one of those, those new creative verticals,
mhm.
there's still some resistance that you feel. Who am I to do this? And there's got to be. and this is one of the sort of common themes in this most recent book, is that you have to have sort of a an unrealistic level of self belief. You know,
Right.
there's some uh, astronomical level of self belief coupled with maybe a healthy level of naivete, where it's like, you know, I can do anything. I'm capable of anything. So, I've done this. So why wouldn't I be able to do this? Well, you probably shouldn't be able to, but if you believe that, you're going to get somewhere near this goal.
Yeah. I don't know
And
why it
not
comes to
everyone.
mind. Go
Go
ahead.
go ahead. Well, I was going to
I was
just
gonna.
say, I'm going to go. So it's to create something that didn't previously exist is scary and the most rewarding thing that you can ever do. There's something that you're putting, if you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur, you're an author, whatever it might be, you are creating something that the world didn't previously have. And that is amazing. That is not to overstate, anything that I've done or anything that you've done, but I mean, that is a legacy. That is something that will last after you've croaked.
Sure. I guess the thing that I was that what popped in my head, and love him or hate him, I don't really care. But the current vice president of the United States of America would not be vice president if he didn't write a book, without
Mhm.
any question. I mean, and I think he would admit that to be true too. And I didn't know. I just saw this the other day because I read Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance is the book I'm referring to, but
Yep.
I didn't realize. I think I knew this and I forgot it. But do you know the person who encouraged him who to write that book?
Was it Amy Chua?
You got it.
Yep.
Which and what book did she write that she's famous for?
I believe that was Tiger Mom.
Correct. So back to writing books and the power is that, to me, it sort of ties some of these things together that we are just talking about. Is my understanding is he just put some words down on paper. I think he was writing maybe this was in law school, I believe. He was
Yep.
writing about his personal story. She read that, and because she was an author and she saw what he both the story and how he wrote it, it was like, boom, you need to do this. And one thing led to
Hmm.
another, and that led to that book, which was a very, very that had a phenomenal reception and really launched his entire career arc. So we don't need to
Hmm.
spend a ton of time on JD Vance, but I'm just sort of saying that that is a very specific example of the power of creation, the power of a book, and how that can be kind of a springboard towards who knows what. So yeah.
So when is the Madan Kandula tome going to hit the
Oh,
shelves?
we are. I don't even know what stage of the process we are in. So my book is not a hillbilly elegy. I don't think. I've not thought about it in that context. My book is on the breathing triangle. So it is literally a book. And I'll go full circle is um, the outline of the book that I'm in process of creating was created when or was created when I hit the stage to do the talk at your conference last year. So I didn't have a talk. I didn't have a book, and then I had a talk, and it that in putting that talk together, it forced me to put my thoughts together in a manner that was like, okay, well, this is what I believe I know. This is why I believe it. That kind of a thing. And so, literally, um, I enjoyed the process of putting my thoughts together. I enjoyed getting up on that stage and sort of, letting your audience and know kind of why I thought what I think. And then
Hmm.
coming out of that, it was more of a like this for me. It's been more of a I've got to do this. Like I have to do this. There's things I know. Basically, there are things that I know and the beliefs that I have that I believe it's important to share with the world. Many of the things that my practices based on are, part and parcel with some of the stuff I put in the book. So it's a little bit. Again, from what I've heard, I feel like the best reason to write a book is, or the best kind of book that to write is a book where you have things that you have to get out, and like it or not, you're gonna have to do this. And that's how I felt about it. It sounds like it's gonna be a miserable
Mhm.
book. Hopefully, it's not that miserable.
No, but it really does. It almost becomes like a compulsion, right?
Yeah.
You've
Yep.
got to get this out. And the other thing is, uh, in my experience and that of many others, and I'd like to get hear what you have to say about this. You've got these thoughts. You maybe talk about these things, but once you actually put pen to paper or finger to keyboard and start writing them, uh, there there becomes it gives you this clarity of thought, because you're able to identify where maybe your thoughts are jumbled. And I would say that that's true of writing. So, whether it's journaling in the morning, if anybody that hears this is, got this, sort of range of battling voices in their brains about what to do in their life or their day or whatever it might be, journal, put a pen to
Mhm.
paper, and it will bring clarity, oftentimes helping you realize how ridiculous your thoughts are,
Yep.
and or help clarify them so that you can then take the necessary action.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, and again, again, I don't even know what we're in the phase of, just we're finishing the manuscript, just trying to work on that part of things. But we've been working on this for, I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. And I think the other the other reality with whether you're writing a journal, writing a social media post is, at least for me, and writing a book is like this, is like, I'm a different person now than the person who started writing this
Mhm.
book. And it's a bit of a challenge. Is at this point I've got to, I got to get this book out, because before, all of my thoughts completely change, and I've got to, and then it's like, I'm sort of stuck in some sort of matrix at this point of, getting it out, because the world changes, and even the breathing triangle world changes. Things change. I think differently about certain things. New knowledge comes into being. And so in a way, in a weird way, and I think books in particular, being physical objects, filled with human beings, sort of ramblings. It's like it's a snapshot in time. Like a picture is a snapshot in time,
Mhm.
but that, kind of the book, you could go and revise a book, and that's a whole different thing. But that book that you created, for, the book that you created back in 2023, is a snapshot in time. And that's there's, I don't know, being a fleeting human being, there's something, just sort of comforting in that. I don't know how you say this, like, meaning that, anyway, it's sort of another place where my head goes in stuff like this, where, books in particular, books have been around for a long time. Lots of people have written lots of books. We're coming into an age and an era where I'm not quite sure. I mean, it seems like books are going to have a good, lengthy track record in front of us. But you never know. You don't know how the world will transform itself.
Yeah.
And I think with that, I'd say another area that's transformed itself, dramatically, is music. So I think we will, maybe bring this one to a close, and next time we will come online with, I think, talking about some of the things that have, formed us. So till next time.
Look forward to it.